The dog dropped a red harness buckle at the groundskeeper's boot, while the tennis ball beside him never moved from the shed doorway that morning at all. He smiled like it was a play request, nudged the ball with his boot, and waited for the dog to chase it across the gravel there. But the dog kept watching the buckle, and the groundskeeper noticed the scuffed red edge with a black thread caught inside the narrow plastic slot there. He tried the ball again, rolling it gently across the safe ground, but the dog leaned only when the buckle moved closer to the threshold line. The buckle showed one black strap thread, and from the low angle, it lined up with the shelf gap inside the doorway behind him again. The next morning, the same buckle came back in the dog's mouth, landing beside the same boot at the same threshold instead of the ball again. This time, the groundskeeper set it on the workbench, far from the doorway, and watched the dog refuse that placement without moving from the threshold spot. When he slid it back near the edge, the dog lifted it carefully, carried it down, and placed it at his boot again right on the threshold line. So the groundskeeper crouched lower, not asking for play now, but measuring where the buckle kept landing against the threshold and the open shelf gap inside. The path still seemed reasonable, so he carried the buckle outside and checked the clean edge where it might have fallen near the shed door. Nothing matched there, and the dog had never left the doorway, which made the original drop spot feel less accidental than it had that morning before. He stopped carrying the buckle away, set it back at the threshold, and bent down to look where the dog kept waiting beside the low shelf gap inside. Then he laid out the test. Ball, stick, buckle. The dog walked past the playthings and picked up only the red buckle before returning it to the doorway. Now the buckle looked less like play and more like a missing part, so he compared it with a plain strap loop on the bench nearby. The strap loop did not fit, but the dog's eyes moved lower, toward the shelf gap beside the threshold, and the quiet empty bin there. An empty bin blocked the view, and when he shifted it a little, the dog watched the narrow dark space instead of him beside the low shelf again. A dark strap edge appeared for a moment, matching the tiny thread, but it slipped behind the shelf before he understood what he was seeing there. He checked the path one more time, found nothing, and the dog calmly brought the buckle back to the same threshold spot beside the shed doorway again today. That was when the buckle's first drop mattered. Its red edge, the black thread, and the shelf gap had stayed in one line every time the dog returned it right there. He moved the bin farther, and the matching harness came into view behind the shelf. Missing the exact red buckle piece he was holding in his hand, the dog stayed beside the doorway, while the groundskeeper held the buckle near the empty connection, quiet enough to let it register without making it bigger. At the doorway where the red buckle first landed, he clipped it back onto the harness, and the dog sat beside the repaired match instead of chasing the ball.